Hello and welcome to another episode of the Winning with Shopify podcast. Today I had such an amazing conversation with Jill from Inventory Planner, which is all part of this new chapter of Winning with Shopify. Instead of having different sponsors each month, each quarter, we're going to have 3 annual partners, potentially 4 or 5. We're talking to a couple of the brands or tech tools at the moment, but we're basically going to have a small amount of partners. So instead of doing like a month on one specific topic, we're going to jump around a little bit more, but we're going to talk about more topical things and bring on ideally some bigger, better guests. If you haven't already checked it out, as part of this new chapter we're going into, we have built a thing called the Growth Hub, which is a community for you guys. We've got our first group of people in there. We've got hundreds in the waiting list. So if you want to go and get involved in that, go to wwspodcast.com. Yep, it's a new domain. Hit Growth Hub and go and join the waiting list. Anyway, kicking off today, obviously the holiday season is coming. I know it feels a bit weird saying that in July, but most brands we're working with in my agency Spec, we are getting ready for holidays. So you can get ahead with your inventory planning and get rid of dead stock, which is going to kill you, and make sure you don't run out of stock through peak by using our partners tool, which is called Inventory Planner. We're going to talk about that a little bit more with Jill from Inventory Planner, which I'm going to hand over to the actual episode in a second. But Inventory Planner are actually offering a 7-day free inventory planning bootcamp. So although inventory management at warehouse sounds really, really boring, Jill and I actually talk about some of the intricacies and how to make more profit as a result of managing this better. So using their free 7-day inventory planning bootcamp, it's a week long. You'll get daily tips, strategies sent into your inbox, and you can avoid stock out, minimize holding costs, and most importantly, boost profit from doing this properly. Each day takes the same amount of time as drinking a coffee as well. I've seen the bootcamp myself. It looks absolutely incredible. And if you want to go and sign up, it's a bit of a long URL. So you can go to our homepage of our website, scroll down to the bit about Inventory Planner and hit Get Offer. And you'll be able to go straight through to their website. But if you want to try and write this down, maybe slow the podcast speed down here and I'll read it out. It's info.brightpearl.com/winning with Shopify holiday planning bootcamp. So it's info.brightpearl.com/winning with Shopify holiday bootcamp with some dashes between each word. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and stay tuned till the end because we talk about some incredible things in the last 5 or 10 minutes as much as the rest of the episode is full of value as well. Thanks for tuning in. So I'm delighted to be joined by Jill from Sage. So Jill, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk with you today.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you back on the show. And we were just joking about how many humans we talk to every year. So I did need a reminder you'd been on. But I knew we'd had Inventory Planner before, of course, because it's not the first time you guys have been on. But anyway, Jill, your role is leading the product marketing for retail at Sage. So tell us a bit about Sage, obviously Inventory Planner, how that fits into the Sage family, and also a bit about your role as well in the business.
Yes, definitely. So Sage is a global company providing financial and accounting solutions, HR, and retail solutions. So I came into Sage through some acquisitions. I was on board originally with the inventory planner team, actually as an inventory planner user, so I can speak to both sides of it. And then Inventory Planner was acquired by Brightpearl, which was acquired by Sage. So we're kind of a Russian nesting doll of acquisitions here.
And we've obviously had Brightpearl on as well. So yes. I know I think they introduced us originally, didn't they?
Yes.
We had their Lightning 50 on it at least 2 years running on the show.
Yes, definitely. So Inventory Planner helps merchants to forecast customer demand. And so that fits into the Sage family of products because we're really trying to be that solution for merchants. So whether it's accounting, HR, payroll, operations, the back office for what merchants need to do, and then forecasting inventory demand as well.
Amazing. And what I find fascinating about things like Shopify and running a business, and I certainly found this in my business, some of the most boring, dry topics on day one become like so exciting when it's like, oh my gosh. So for example, one of the problems I know you guys solve that lots of brands use you for, and lots of our clients certainly here at Spec talk about a lot, is like, oh my gosh, I've got a warehouse just full of dead stock. I can't sell it. I can't get a refund on it. And it's just sitting there. So obviously better planning for, and we're going to talk obviously, as you guys probably saw in the title, which is a fantastic summer topic, talking about the holiday season and going into Christmas. But obviously sitting on that dead stock is just horrible, isn't it? And I think actually planning better going into that and managing your inventory better it's a game changer for the finances of an e-commerce store.
Absolutely, yes. And I think that this is a common scenario that you described where maybe inventory isn't the thing that gets people out of bed in the morning, but
Yep.
it can be such a cash flow killer. And so it can really be so detrimental to a business if we don't get inventory right. So that's definitely the situation that I was in. And I've talked to hundreds, maybe thousands of merchants in the same scenario where we're trying to do something with our business. Maybe we got into it because we're passionate about a product or serving a community. We're great at marketing. We didn't get into it because we're experts at inventory control and ordering. And so that's where we come in, and we really like to help merchants and say, okay, this is one of your biggest expenses. How can we work together to help get this right? So that's at the end of the day what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think a really important point to make on this as well is if you're quite an early stage brand, where Jill and the team actually come in and really support brands like you is going, okay, something's starting to sell now, and you go like, oh my gosh, just buy millions of them, and then they stop selling. Or
Exactly.
something starts to sell, and then a second product is actually doing all right, but it's being masked by a bigger product. And if you don't have that data or have that advice to go, actually, don't buy too many of these, or actually, this best-selling product, let's make some more like that product and build a range around it, and actually evolve the product range of the business. There's a whole kind of, sometimes people say it's more of an art than it is a math, equation. The maths are important, but where it comes back, I think, as you say, like getting up out of bed in the morning, where it comes back to what I think is the fun stuff. I know the inventory stuff's fun for you. Marketing's fun for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes back to marketing is like, when I look at like, I don't know, Google Shopping campaign, I look at analytics, look at Shopify for some of our clients, the amount of
Mm-hmm.
them that fit that 80-20 rule of 80% of their sales come from 20% of their products, that
Absolutely.
80% of products is just sitting there on a shelf. That's a problem. And we're going to talk a little bit about how, what you can do about those, and how we obviously we can plan into Christmas as well. But I guess first question really, when we're talking about Christmas and talking about holiday, and it's funny that you guys in the US call it holiday season. It's so much more PC than in the UK. We're like, it's Christmas, which is obviously a Christian event.
It
And
is.
we're just like,
It
it's
is a little
Christmas.
bit of okay. I
Yeah.
do a double take, I guess, is what I'm trying to say every time that comes up from the UK. But
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. We'll call it holiday season. Most of our listeners are US based. We'll call
All
it
right.
holiday season today. But
Yeah.
when we're talking about holiday, I mean, as I say, like it's July right now, and I don't know about you guys, like we're having a really nice British summer. Like it's cloudy, but it hasn't rained, so like it's weird in the heat planning for the cold.
Yes.
Certainly in the northern hemisphere. If you're in the southern hemisphere, like Christmas is great. You have it at the beach. How do you even start from an inventory point of view? Actually, start planning and I guess it's kind of twofold here, isn't it? There's ordering stuff in time and knowing what to order. So, like, where does a brand even start with that to have a successful holiday season?
Absolutely. So we start with the forecast, and it's always a question of how do we use the data that we have in order to figure out what we're most likely to sell going
Mm,
forward. So we're looking at seasonal items. These can be items that are only for sale around Christmas, around the holidays, or it could just be the items we have for sale all year long that sell differently in November and December. So those are the two kind of buckets of things that we would classify as seasonal. So we're going to go back and look at last year. So first, what was the bump we saw in November and December compared to the rest of the year? So we're getting that percentage increase. I commonly see that's 300, 400% increase in November, December compared to prior months. So we want to look at what's the bump, and then we can see how is this year trending so far. Are
mm,
we overall up? We want to get ahead of that trend, because if we're not anticipating the trend, we're going to run out before we had planned. So go back and look at last year. How do we do? What worked? What didn't? And really dig into that data. Then what are we hearing from customers? What are we seeing from customers? Like you said, it's part art, part science. We want to
yep.
start with the data, but then we need the human intelligence, the business intelligence layered on top of that to say, okay, that trend is really hot right now. So we're going to expand that line, or we're going to launch a new line. And that's where we have to get into planning, where July is the time. I mean, even
Mm.
earlier, and try to say, all right, we need to get this going, and make sure that we have enough so that when we get to those peak times, we're making the most of what is our biggest selling time of the year.
Yeah, I love that. And we've actually, certainly with a lot of our retail clients, if they go really big at peak,
Mm-hmm.
Which peak is a universal word, unlike Christmas. But when we say holiday season in the UK, we are like, that's American. But when we're looking at peak, we actually spend 2-3 weeks in January while it's really quiet with our clients now, and actually do a proper wash up
Yeah.
and look at the calendar and go, when did we go with Black Friday? When did we go with Christmas? What sales? And we're going to talk about a little bit later as well about discount schedules and that kind of
Yep.
stuff as well, guys, which was Jill's idea, which I think is fantastic. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But certainly we started doing the wash up in January to actually just build the calendar, which
Mm-hmm.
also means when you get to July, you're not like crawling through the archives of data going, darn it, GA4 wasn't working properly last year, which is going to be the big thing this year. Everyone's going to be going, GA4 wasn't working last year. Is it working now?
Yes.
No, it's still not working. So I think like actually having that in January documented and build the calendar of like, right, we need to do a teaser now in September and see if we can boost what we did in October before we go on sale in November. Because we had a lull before, and you start setting some targets around this stuff. So I definitely think July, and it depends on your order schedule, doesn't it? Or your turnaround time of placing an order to stock arriving.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that idea of a teaser in September. You can use things like, every industry has kind of made up holidays that you can use National Dog
Or you can
Biscuit
make
Day
your
or,
own.
whatever it is. Use that as a teaser. You could use Prime Day as a teaser. How are things going to work that you can do a little tester ahead of time, ahead of real peak season to say, oh, that offer didn't land or that product didn't land like we thought it was going to, or it went gangbusters. Great news, great problem to have. Let's order more and get that going. So if there are little ways that you can test that ahead of time so it's not totally banking just on that one period, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm getting more and more, and I'm reading a book on this at the moment about the psychology of human brains alongside marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And what this book sort of says, and quite a lot of the stuff I've been engaging with a lot recently and talking about, and this is probably where the podcast can end up as well, everybody, is actually looking at you can't solve most marketing problems with numbers. You have to use the numbers. But I think, as you said earlier, actually about you said science. I think I said maths. They're kind of art and science is the more common way of putting it. But I think that exact thing of going, do you know what? The data says we should order 10% more of the stock this year because we're up 8% and we want to hit 10.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, from a human point of view, like just using human brain, we know we've got one of the biggest celebrities in the world is about to wear our stuff. So we should order 80 to 100% more than last year.
Right.
And we should have a contingency plan if we need more. And maybe we tease it to our VIP customers first to just kind of dangle the fishing rod and see how many fish start biting. Because if we buy 100 of this item for this celebrity, VIP people only, and start making a little bit of noise online, but keeping it a bit hush hush, we almost want the press to go like, is so-and-so about to team up with this brand? Like that's the ultimate, nothing to do with your article. You could tell your PR agencies to do it, but I think using that human element as well of going, actually, we know there's been another pandemic, or actually there's been a lot of sport this year, or we're having our election. In fact, when this goes out, the UK election result will be out, so we'll see what situation we're in. But you guys have got an election coming up as well, and so I think like knowing what's happening in the wider world to try and preempt what people are going to do, you're never going to get it bulletproof. But I just think I love that point you made about like, let's use the data, but let's not just solely make decisions based on it. Let's use some of that human knowledge to go with it.
It's both. And especially in that scenario where you outline, if we're working with a celebrity that we haven't worked with before or on this product before, the data isn't going to show that. So that's where you have to have that human element to come in and say, okay, last time we had a big launch, what kind of bump did we see? Any sort of data that we can use to inform that, and then say, does this really pass the gut check test as well?
I like that.
I think that's definitely an important thing to keep in mind. One other thing on the psychology, I think this can get really interesting when we're getting into people's approach to how they want to maintain their inventory levels. What I mean by that is, especially fashion brands or things that are really trendy, do we actually kind of want to ride that edge of running out and generate some FOMO? And we're actually leaning towards the scarcity model, and that's our brand. Or do we want to lean the other way and say, we are reliable, dependable, we always have what you need? So I visited a merchant last month where they said, our competitive advantage is not saying, we'll get that for you in 3 weeks, because all of
Mm.
our competitors can get that for you in 3 weeks. Our competitive advantage is having the blanks on hand so that we can print it right here and we can get that for you, your custom order, in a week.
Yeah.
And that's where we win over everybody else. So they need to be skewing towards a little overstocked on key items, not everything, but on key items. So really thinking about what's our cash flow
Yeah.
situation, what's our brand proposition, what's our relationship with our community, to say, do I want to run out? Am I kind of okay
Mm.
with that? Or do I just want to have everything and always be dependable so people know where to go?
Yeah, yeah. And what I love is you've just tied together two of the like, I guess the kind of the least communicating brother and sister of the entire e-commerce world, and that's the warehouse and the marketing team.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
certainly from an SEO perspective, we tend to be SEO where we're drawing in more parties to do a central kind of achieve a central goal. And I think actually what you've just said about like the FOMO of, okay, we've only got 4 of these left in stock. As soon
Mhm.
as you're down to the last one, it's like, I saw a site the other day. It said like it had an estimate. I don't know if they slowed their pace down. It had an estimate of, we reckon we're going to be out of stock in 2 hours. And I
Yeah.
reckon it was probably more like 20 hours or maybe 2 days.
Right.
But because they put 2 hours, I was way more likely to buy that product, because they'd actually
Yeah.
taken the emphasis away of, do you want it or not? They put the emphasis on like, get it or lose. Like those are your options. Like, well, I don't want to
Are
lose.
you in or you out?
I'm really
Yeah. What are you doing?
competitive.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think actually tying together like a kind of inventory warehouse problem and using the website to do that. We've had clients before as well who they couldn't shift stuff. So they put on the website, like, this is going to run out soon.
Mm.
And it's not false advertising, because they were right. As soon as they put, this is going to run out soon, sales went up because people were like, well, I don't want to miss out on this item. And
Yeah.
it went
And
up,
I
and then they ordered more of them and then couldn't sell them because they didn't put the same. It's good. So I think it's learning from that mistake. Like, I hate long form documentation, but I think just keeping a log of like, this works, this doesn't. And like, it doesn't mean that's not going to change in the future. It just means when we've tested it, that worked and that didn't. And it's almost like you come in the morning going, right, which of these boxes do I want to open and go down that road and see if I can fix? Some people create an outlet and just go, no one buys this stuff, so we'll put it in our outlet. And that's just our
Mhm.
discount. And you always put last few on all of them, and say the outlet's got less than 5 SKUs, less than 5 items per SKU, sort of thing, in terms of
Right.
quantity. And
Exactly.
I love that whole kind of FOMO approach to things, because it creates marketing urgency. And as a marketing person, it gives us something to actually go to market with, which anyone who's listened to podcasts recently knows I've been banging this drum a lot of, like, do something that actually makes people want to buy the product. And FOMO is not new. That, like, only 3 left. We plan that going to run out shortly is not new, but it is effective and it does work.
Definitely. And I love that you brought up, the people who are planning and buying the inventory need to be talking with marketing
Yeah.
and vice versa. Otherwise we're wasting marketing dollars. I've seen on Amazon where somebody did not want to run out. There was going to be kind of momentum lost if they completely ran out. So they actually increased the price.
Yep.
They slowed that down, and didn't have to turn off their ads there. So there's a number of strategies there. And, I've also talked to merchants who will either take their direction from marketing and say, here's what we want to emphasize, so that's what we're going to order. Or other merchants go the other way, where marketing says, what do you have a lot of? Or what are we going to have enough of? And that's what we'll put out into the market and in front of our customers. So
Mm.
I think that's such an important relationship and communication internally. And at the small merchant level, that could be just be one person wearing different hats, but as
Yep.
we kind of grow up and scale up, making sure those departments are talking is really important.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second and say that actually, in my experience, one of those two ways, whether it's like the merchandising team telling marketing or marketing telling merchandising, one way I've found is quite unhealthy, and one way is really healthy. And the healthy one tends to be, and this does come down to the competency, I would say, of the marketing team. It tends to be
Hmm.
better when the marketing team tell the merchandising team what to buy, because
Hmm.
they're the ones connected to the customer, and they should be looking at, like, guys, we're selling loads of these. This is a popular brand on our website. Buy everything this brand have. Get one SKU of everything, or maybe 3 SKUs of everything. And as soon as
Right.
we sold 1 or 2 or something, buy 5, buy 10. Especially if we can get hold of them quickly. There's
Hmm.
a particular retailer we work with here in the UK, and they don't have their own brand. They sell about 5,000 other brands, but they can
Hmm.
get, one of their caveats is we only want to buy from brands we can get hold of stock within about 7 days. And if we can't do that, they'll fulfill for us. So actually, we send them overnight delivery, all the boxes and bags and stuff they need, and they'll fulfill for
Yeah.
us. And
Yeah.
that's been working really, really effectively, because then they sit on very little stock. But in terms of inventory planning and managing that inventory, they have to be so on it, because
Yes.
there's actually, it's not like, okay, we'll place an order and a ship leaves Taiwan and heads for the United States, and it
Right
turns
away.
up 3 weeks
Yeah.
later. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we got to be really, really careful, I think, about how complicated some of these systems can be. But certainly in my experience,
Yeah.
when the merchandising team are like, look, we've got all of this, you're the marketing team, just sell it, you've ignored the fact that there's a customer here and customers
Yeah.
don't want to buy it. So you just need to deal with that and get over the
Yeah.
fact they don't want to buy it. Like, that's a really important part of this. And I've been at some brands where it's almost got unhealthy, that kind of argument, to where, again, SEO hat on, we've come in with, you mentioned earlier as well about planning ahead, using SEO data and keyword data to go
Mhm.
every year. Searching for this range of products is getting more and more, or getting higher and higher in value. Therefore, we need more and more of those products every year because it's popular. So, in one brand in particular, we actually, and I'm happy to say, actually, it was TJ Maxx, or TK
Mhm.
Maxx as we call it. I
Mhm.
sat down with their UK and European buying team and said, look, check out this data. And they were like, where the hell did you get this? It was just a spreadsheet, and just showed you 12 months of the year on our
Yeah.
keyword list, what people were looking for. And
Mhm.
they started buying stuff off the back of that. So we had the biggest prom dress range in the country, in the UK, in January, and we sold tons of them. And I actually learned that because we had a drop in traffic the previous year, because we didn't realize why. And I, as their SEO agency, were like, oh, it's because someone renamed the prom dress category in January, and January is the
Oh,
biggest
yeah.
month. They're like,
Yeah.
what? But prom's in like June, July. Like, people aren't buying dresses. Then I'm like, well, they are, and they're buying them
Yeah.
from you. Well, not anymore, because you renamed that. But so next year we went really hard on it, and
Yeah.
actually had a smaller activewear range in January as well, because we didn't find people were buying it the previous
Yeah.
year. So, as you say, using that data to then work out, tell the merchandising team, like, get us more of this and get us less of that. And it solved a lot of arguments of like, what do we push on the homepage, on email? Bearing in mind, they've, in the UK, there's like 5 to 10,000 products or something, and they churn every 3 months. So like, there's a lot
It's
going on.
massive. It's
Yeah.
massive. Yeah, definitely. And, I think it just really emphasizes how often and how healthy that relationship needs to be.
Mm,
Because the merchandising team could say, we sold a lot of units of this, but it was because we discounted the price.
yeah.
We need to know the whole story of why is this selling. And like you said, the merchandising team can come to the marketing team and say, here's an assortment report. Here's how well these different colors sell. We're
Mm.
never selling well on the yellow version of this. And so let's stop ordering it, like that kind of
Or just
thing.
have one, because the power of choice. Then I don't want the yellow, I want the red. Because
Exactly.
I've seen it before where, like, if you get rid of the yellow, then people go like, I don't know if I want a red one. But when you see red alongside yellow, you're like, red's way better.
Yeah,
It's that whole psychology.
exactly. Yeah, so it's such a symbiotic relationship to say, all right, what's working well, what's not. We both have critical data, and it's just part of the whole journey and
Mm,
the underlying health of the business, right? For the cash flow
yep.
of how quickly do we get inventory in and get it out of here, and what kind of profit are we making? Both of those things, the speed and the amplification of it,
Yep.
and both are really critical to making that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you mentioned something before we hit record, and I said we're going to talk about it. And I love the way you phrased it, which is discount schedule.
Yeah.
And I told you we've had some clients have disaster stories, and I've shared one or two without their names on the podcast. Talk us through what, from an inventory point of view, what you guys mean by a discount schedule.
Definitely. So, up until now, we've been talking about what do we need to order
Mm,
by when so that we have it on time.
yeah.
So, ahead of peak season, when you still kind of have your head attached to your body, and we're not in the frenzy of everything going on with the holiday,
Yep.
come up with a schedule. We have a forecast of how this should be selling. So, let's check in after Black Friday and say December 1st. How many of these did we sell? Are we on track? Then let's check on the 10th, on the 15th, and then have a plan already. Okay, if we have 300 units of this left on the 15th, let's mark this down 25%. Because getting something out of that during the season, especially on seasonal
Mm,
items, is worth more than nothing on December 26th.
yep.
Okay. We do not want to be stuck with it afterwards. So get something out of it. And don't just wake up on the 26th or on January 1st or 2nd and say, oh, look at all this inventory we have. Have a plan. and know
Yeah.
what those checkpoints are. Dates, how many should we be selling? If we haven't sold, what's our discount for that? Or
Hmm.
if we check in after Black Friday, it's December 1st and we say, oh my gosh, we're out of this already, have a backup plan. Be communicating with your vendor now and say, what are those SKUs that we can get in very quickly if we need an emergency supply, if this just goes
Yeah.
gangbusters? Um, have your backup plan ready ahead of time, ahead of peak schedule, so that you're ready to hit the ground running when that happens.
Yeah, and certainly, just to share one quick story on this, where in fact I could share two, one about inventory and one about discounts. The inventory one, one of our clients were like, "We need to ramp everything down," and we're like, "What do you mean?" We're like, "We're up so much year on year," and it was an inventory issue. They said we actually run so low on stock,
Mm.
and we were like a bit gutted. We're like, "Oh my gosh!" We're like turning budgets down at the beginning of January, at the beginning of December,
Oh,
sorry. And we were gutted. We were like, we've still got so much more to give. There's
yeah.
2 more marketing campaigns ready to go out for the next 2 weeks before delivery cutoff. They've been cancelled. And we sort of sat there for a minute. And I just said to my team, like, and I remember this vividly back in December. I said, is there anything we can do? Like, it's not about keeping the budget up. That's not the thing here. It's just we're in peak and we're going to miss all this
Hmm.
extra revenue we could get.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
someone said, like, well, how low are they on stock? And I was like, well, I don't know. They just told us they're really low. And what are they low on? And that was the key question. What are they low on? And you
Hmm.
mentioned this earlier. We went back to them and said, hey, are you guys free? Like, can you jump back on a call? We've had an idea. And we said, look, we're not just trying to keep the budget up here. It's just everyone's shopping, everyone's got money, and your competitors are going to get these customers. And then we're not going to have them for the whole year. And we're not going to
Yeah.
have them going into next year because they would have gone elsewhere. So we said, like, have you got anything in stock? And they did. And there was some stuff we had advertised quite a lot over the years and it just hadn't really popped. Like we've been
Hmm.
trying to get to work. I was like, could you just knock 10% off and we'll see what happens? And they did. And it was not seasonal. It was not winter stuff. It was quite summery. And it's selling like hotcakes. But they had loads of stock, and then they found more stock they didn't even have on the website, stuff that was basically written off, and they were like, what do we do with this stuff? And they said to the finance director, like, can we sell it? He's like, of course, put it, yeah, sell it now. So we
Please.
put that on, and then the real killer, and this is one of my, I think one of my greatest moments in marketing. I phoned their PR agency and said, I got a story for you.
Hmm.
And they've said, I can share this with you. And they're like, all right, we're pretty clued up. We know it's all like, best place to buy this during peak. And I said, the PR story is that these guys are selling stuff that is summer product through Christmas. So your story is a retail, Financial Times here in the UK, like Financial Times, amazing.
Hmm.
And Financial Times, like how this brand is selling summer products in the middle of winter and where it came from. And they got a ton of PR off the back of it. And
Nice.
actually
Nice.
their CEO got interviewed on the news off the back of not that specifically, but this whole move to like, people were buying summer stuff, like, and it was supposed to be in like a cost of living crisis here, and like people are buying like summer hats in the middle of winter. Like, what is going
Right.
on?
Right.
Um, and then later we found out a lot of people were actually traveling out of the UK to go somewhere warm like South Africa, Australia,
Hmm.
Mauritius, just to get some winter sun. And we were like,
Yeah.
wow, we hadn't even thought of that. So we built a bit of a market around that. So we're doing the same this year, is the plan. But yeah, that dead stock was fascinating. And then second story, much shorter. One of our clients was they went early for Black Friday in October, and they cleaned up, they killed it. Like
Hmm.
they made so much money, and they can make stock quickly. So they ran out of
Yeah.
stock, but they were making more, so it wasn't an issue. And they were like, this is great. Got to November, and it was like, hang on, what are we going to do now? We can't discount it anymore because it's supposed to be a luxury product.
Hmm.
They did discount it more, and that was bad. And then we got to December and they discounted it even more. We had like 60, 70% off lots of lines, hundreds of pounds for a single item of clothing. And we hit January and the whole business was on its knees. So I think there's just that. I think having a discount schedule is good. The problem that brand made, I think, is they were just making gut wrench decisions based on, oh,
Hmm.
look, a low week of revenue, add more discount. Oh, look, revenue's gone up. And
Yeah.
then when they tried to balance the books at the beginning of January for peak, they were like, we've made a loss because we've
Yeah.
discounted so much. And of course, we were screaming at them the whole time, being like, "This is bad. This is bad. This is bad." We did manage to drag them out the trenches, sort of early Feb. We managed to get our ROI back up, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to do a sale," and it's like, "No, you're not."
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
stopped them doing that. But I think the point being is, I think having that discount schedule of like when we're going to discount stuff, use previous data, and then plan your inventory around that. So you've got stock, you've got the right stock at the right time, and most importantly, you've not wasted money on the wrong stock.
For sure. Yeah.
Sounds easy.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought up that example. So discount schedule is just
Mm,
sort of an overarching term, but it doesn't mean you need to discount. So just like we talked about, is your brand generating FOMO, or are you the reliable brand that always has what you need? It can also be that discounting isn't right for your brand. Like you talked about with luxury brands, we don't want to discount and train your customers to expect that. So instead, how could we offer maybe a free gift on top of it? So we're adding value to it rather than saying it's less, that it's cheaper, so we're adding value, but they're getting more, providing that incentive. So just think through, what are those levers that we want to pull that are right for our brand. In the end, don't be totally precious about discounts. Some money is better than nothing, but think about those other levers, especially with your brand, and say, okay, are there other ways that we can incentivize people to make these purchases too?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've done episode after episode. We had Loyalty Lion on in January talking about like how to do loyalty without discounting. There's lots of ways to do it, guys. And I think the first thing I'd say on it is what I say every episode, and I haven't said it yet, is talk to your customers. Find out what they actually want. Because if you start saying to your customers, like, what would you prefer, 10% off or exclusive access to an item? If they say exclusive access, it's not a customer you've got there, it's an ambassador. That's someone who's actually going to buy from you a lot. And what you really need to find out is like, how do I get 1,000 of these guys? Get 1,000 of these guys, I've got a really profitable business and a fun business where my customers are engaged. I'm not trying to convince anyone to do anything. I just need to be like, hey, we've got a new product. And people are like, I love it. Absolutely love it. Because you built the right product for the customer.
Definitely.
So tell us a bit more. We've spoken a lot about inventory. Obviously, Sage have Inventory Planner, which was Inventory Planner, then Inventory Planner under Brightpearl, and now under Sage. And you've kind of done both of those leaps, which I think is really cool. But tell us more about Inventory Planner. Like, obviously, it can forecast stock or the inventory required. What can it actually do? If people go on Shopify and install it today, like, what's it going to tell them that they haven't got already or can't get from other tools?
Yeah, definitely. So Inventory Planner will sync all of your sales data, your product information, and it will help you to forecast customer demand. So you can customize this down to your needs. So say you have a couple of locations, maybe you're selling online and you have a brick and mortar, or you have East Coast and West Coast warehouses. Those sell differently. They have different personalities for how they sell. So they need to be forecasted separately. An inventory planner is set up to handle that very easily. We also know that most product catalogs have a mix of types of products. So it can be seasonal, non-seasonal, new items that perform differently. So that level of customization is there to respond to your business. Then finally, you can put in, here's what my lead time is from my vendor. Here's how long it takes them to make it and ship it to me, so that I'm ordering ahead of time and not when I'm actually out, because that is way too late. So we need to know ahead of time so that we're not missing out on that revenue. So Inventory Planner will look ahead and say, okay, you need to order 14 days ahead of time and you want a 30-day supply. Here's our recommendation. We can easily make a purchase order, send that to our vendor. We can take into account minimums, case sizes. All of that can save a ton of time. So quick story, when I was a merchant and using Inventory Planner, our most popular line of products had different case sizes for every single SKU. And when I was doing POs manually, I screwed it up every single time. And bless them, they were very nice about responding like, Jill, you messed this up again. Here's the case sizes. Just back and forth, back and forth. So just a tremendous time savings. It seems like such a simple thing, but it just made I didn't have to spend my time on what's a low value thing, but I need the PO right to my vendor, and just take care of all those vendor considerations. So forecast demand, make recommendations on when to purchase, how much to purchase, and then easily create a purchase order based on top of that. So that's the main value that Inventory Planner can provide. As part of that, we also give business insight into how your business is performing, how your inventory is performing in particular. So I originally came to Inventory Planner because I didn't have the baseline information about the company I was running. We didn't know what our profits were. I mean, baseline information. we didn't know anything. We needed to know our margins. We needed to know what was our most popular line of products. As it turns out, our most popular line of products was selling so well because we were selling it below cost. Hot tip, don't do that. So just staying on top of your
easily
basic
done
information. Yeah, you heard it here, folks. Don't do that. But staying on top of that what's selling well, what's really taking off. I can compare this week to last week, or this week to the same week last year.
Yep.
What are these trends? What are our customers saying through their purchases? So I think that insight and making sure we have the latest data is so important.
Yeah, and to be honest, I find myself as a marketing person doing so much analysis for our clients. So, as
Yeah.
I said, the 80-20 rule to
Yeah.
work out what the 20 is and what the 80 is. And when you look at it as well, it's like a sliding scale. So even on face value, not having a tool that goes, these are your best sellers, these ones are not, like it costs you too much to market them
Yeah.
to make any margin
Exactly.
back.
Exactly.
It's valuable information. And even like just thinking about it on a Google Ads level, like you have one campaign or one set of campaigns for like this stuff sells really well, unlimited budget. We know it's going to sell. The ROI is always really good. This
Yeah.
stuff doesn't sell so well. So this is where we're going to focus the marketing attention to get our 20%
Mhm.
of products to sell well to 40 to 60 to 80. That's a
Yeah.
really good. And so many brands I talk to, they're like, we don't really have a strategy. We just want to make more. Well, now you've got one. You've got one
Yeah.
looking at what is selling versus what's not selling to then go, do we want to change the marketing to try and sell this thing? Let's test that first. It's probably the cheapest and easiest and quickest thing to do, especially if it's sitting in the warehouse. Or actually,
Yeah.
do we want to just work out a way of liquidating all that stock into cash to spend
Right.
on the 20%? Or how do we widen that 20%?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, and I think that where do we need to focus our attention? It also applies to what do we actually need to purchase. So we live in the real world, and we don't have all the money in the world to purchase all the inventory we'd like. We need to make decisions. So what's going to produce the biggest ROI as quickly as possible, right? So it helps to just triage, okay, these are our most important items. Let's purchase this first and go down the line until we run out of budget. And then we
Yeah.
say, okay, these other items, maybe we discontinue them, or we're okay with an occasional stock out for these items. They're not our core items, but those key items, we just make sure that those evergreen items are always in stock, and that's what we want to have on hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When I used to run my own brand, we had, I probably told the story a million times in the podcast, but yeah, we had two products that sold really, really well. And we managed to one of them was better than the other one. And then we had these other like 50 products, and they were like, we'd sell a few and the margins were much better on the other
Mhm.
50, but
Mhm.
these two were just amazing. So I kept just bumping the price up and people kept buying them.
Yeah.
And I went to reorder them, and the factory said, oh, we can't get hold of that material anymore. Like we don't use it. I'm like, what? So I called around all the other warehouses in China being like, I need
Yeah.
this in this
Yeah.
material. Like people, and they were like, oh, it's the government have basically said it was, it's something that's an endangered like wood that we're not allowed to chop anymore. A certain type of bamboo we're not allowed to cut, because they're trying to grow more of it and stuff. And I was like, what? Like, have I been, helping this? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously not. Like, it was just it's bamboo, and the government said, right, we're running out of that, so we're gonna grow a lot more of it so we don't lose it. But I remember, just having those two products that were selling, and just to be clear, like something that Jill and I both said right at the start as well is this is one of the things that kills a business is when
Mhm.
you look at the
Mhm.
bank account, you've got no money, you look at the warehouse and it's full, and you don't have any money to sell the products. So you can see that vicious cycle that starts really quickly.
Absolutely.
Unless you really want to scale, you can definitely build a very, very good e-commerce business with very little investment beyond just
Mhm.
buying that first range of products. But again, the thing that trumps all of this is ask your customers, what do you use my product for? Why'd you buy it? Why did you buy it in the first place? When do you plan to buy another one? Do you shop at any other brands like us? What do you prefer about them? And you start to work that out. Because there is, as I said earlier on, there is always that danger, I think, of looking at the numbers and going like, oh, this product's selling really well. Isn't that fantastic? When actually it's like, no, we just got it right. We just got the marketing right on that product, and the
Mhm.
positioning and the use case and the target audience. And it'll be the same for a lot of our products. We just need to find out who those people are. And it's like, how much can we spend to find out? We need to accumulate some data here really to use. What would you say, Jill? And this is, I think, a really killer question. And sorry for putting you on the spot. I'm keen to see what you think. What would you say is a point in a business's life cycle where they need to go from sort of like startup mode, where it's like just gets, like lots of SKUs and small volumes and just start selling it, to actually now like we need a schedule? Like, is there any particular point or any particular symptoms in the business where it's like, okay, now we need to start actually managing our inventory as opposed to just it's a smash and grab to prove the business is viable?
Yeah, I think pretty quickly you'll need to be intentional about your inventory. So, one strategy that I used to try to expand our catalog was work out with one vendor who could do drop shipping. So we added their entire
Okay.
catalog, tested that out, found a few that worked. Then we could bring that in-house and have better margins
That's
on those
genius. Yeah.
items. So, you can spray and pray with your product catalog for a while, but just
Mm.
stay on top of that. So that drop shipping model, we knew we weren't making money off of that, but
Yeah.
really the intention was how do we eventually get to more profitability and better margins on top of this? So have that in mind as you're trying things out, as you're launching. I would say quite quickly you'll need to stay on top of that because as we've said over and over again, it's one of your largest expenses between inventory and marketing. That's sucking up most of your budget there.
Mm.
So I think quite quickly to stay on top of that is really important. As your company is growing and you're thinking about, okay, what's the tech stack here? Think about how much time are you spending compiling data? I've talked to merchants who say, okay, we spend all day, we've got a guy on the team who spends all day Monday bringing in the data from here and from over here and from over here. And then the rest of the week we operate on that data. Guess what? It's out of date by Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then Monday we do that cycle all over again. Are there systems that can handle this? So
Mm.
inventory planner is one, Brightpearl is one that can sync all of your data. What's the value of that? It sounds so simple, but just not
Yeah.
having to spend a full day getting your data and then operating off of dated information the rest of the
Yeah.
week is worth a lot. What's the opportunity cost that you're
And just
passing up by
praying all
not?
weekend it's green on Monday.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
So just thinking about what's the value of automating the data collection and the
Mm.
insights that we can get, and then what can we automate and get? How can we work smarter on top of that information that we have then?
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up. I don't think I've ever shared this on the podcast at all, but one of the first things we always say to new clients when they come in the door, and we ask current clients a lot, is what reports are you building, sending
Hmm. Hmm.
internally, feeding up the food chain?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Like, when's your trading meeting? And it's normally
Yeah.
on a Monday. And so we sort of said to brands for like, could you send us a copy of that? Like, obviously, we signed a contract, we've got an NDA, we can see all the data,
Right.
and we've probably got access to all of it anyway. Send it over, and then like within an hour, we reply going like, how about this? And they click a button as Google Looker Studio. And it obviously doesn't include the inventory data, but it does include all of the marketing data.
Yeah.
And then they look at it and go, could you make it pink? Yeah, we can make it pink. It's like, could you add
Whatever
this
you want.
metric?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we can add that metric. We'll put it in right
Right.
now. It's like, okay, rather than emailing, should we just jump on a call in 10 minutes and we make it work exactly as you want? And that again comes back to the biggest and most important question, which I was chatting to one of my team this morning about. Biggest and most important question that every brand should share with everybody they work with internally, externally is, what are we trying to achieve here? Like, what does good look like?
Mm-hmm.
And we all want to make more revenue, but what is,
Mm-hmm.
and I've started using this equation more as well. What are the 2 or 3 KPIs or metrics that equal revenue?
Yeah.
So I always used to look
Yeah.
at the revenue and be like, does it make the boat go faster? Yes or no. So now we're at a level where we're actually trying to look at like, there's normally 2 or 3 metrics that are like,
Mhm.
okay, if we're number 1 on Google for this keyword, it's one keyword. As much as I love SEO and we have thousands of keywords for every client, one keyword will drive
Right.
it. Again, the 80-20 rule, one keyword will drive a ton of traffic.
Yeah.
So maybe it's 5 keywords. We just need to maintain those. Every
Mhm.
day, we need a keyword reading of the rank. That's important. Second thing, have we sent our email out this week to VIP customers and have they bought stuff? Because if they don't buy stuff on that weekly email, that hurts us. And
Yeah.
there'll be at least one more metric you could look at that are like those 3 things, which now is just exactly what you were saying. Is like, now we can focus our time and use real-time data.
Mhm.
As you say, there's 2 tools at your end, plus there's a whole suite of dashboards and when GA4 breaks, just use Shopify. It doesn't have as good source information, but it will tell you who's buying what and on what day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we tend to cross-reference that with GA4 anyway. Even if GA4 is set up and working beautifully, someone's not got cookies enabled, GA4 doesn't work. So
Yeah.
it just comes through as not set. It's like, there was someone, but we don't know who they were, where they came from, or what they bought. But there was someone, and it will still
Yeah.
show you there was someone there. Whereas
Exactly.
Shopify will be like, it was Joe Blogs, and Joe bought these 6 t-shirts and returned 2 of them. It's like, that's useful information. Thank you very much. So yeah, I
Definitely.
think automating all of that in some sort of dashboard situation to go, and I love the fact as well, you're connecting inventory to what's selling, not just how do we keep the warehouse looking pretty? Because as you
Mhm.
say, like, if you had all the money in the world, you just buy everything, check it in the
Yeah.
warehouse and see what
Yeah.
sells. But we know what kind of problems that would create.
Definitely. Definitely. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention we have a sister product called Retail Analytics that if inventory planner is the purchasing of the inventory, retail analytics is the similar insights into how is this selling, how could this sell better, how do we take action on this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that you and I are going to dive into that another time.
We
So
are
it's a
going to talk
little
about
bit
it
of
in
a
a few weeks.
teaser,
Yes.
but it is relevant here on
Mm.
how does the warehouse team, how does the purchasing team talk with the marketing team and make sure that we're handling such a big asset and the cash flow killer.
Yeah.
How are we kind of taming that beast within the business too?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, we'll bring things into land there, but for everyone listening, that is your homework. Go and look at your inventory, work out what stock's dead, what you need to reorder, and if it's working. And if not, give Inventory Planner a go. As you might have heard me say in the intro as well, like they are one of our partners now for the next year, which is super exciting. And as I said in the intro as well, and I'll re-emphasize it now, we didn't choose, we didn't just take the cash. We chose Inventory Planner. We make decisions on who we want to partner with. Going forward, and they're one of 3 brands that we're partnering with at the moment. There might be a couple more as well. So this is going to be going on for a while. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to have the 2 of our other partners on as well. We're going to be talking about influencer marketing. We're going to be talking about email marketing as well. But Jill, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to have you on the show again.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Great stuff. And for everyone listening, back again next Friday. And if you haven't already, I will get shot at dawn tomorrow for not saying our new community is live. There are hundreds of you guys on the waiting list right now, and we're slowly bringing you in. We're having a little welcome video call with myself, my colleague Lee as well. So you want to come meet me and meet Lee, who you will have seen a few weeks ago as well. Make sure you go to winningwithshopify.com. It's on a slightly different URL. Some of you've noticed as well. Apologies for that. We're trying to get permission from Shopify to have the word Shopify in our URL, which is not easy. But yeah, go to winningwithshopify.com and it will forward you to the site and check out Growth Hub. You can go and join the waiting list for free. And we look forward to getting you in the community there so you guys can all meet each other, help each other with problems and talk more to us and get solutions to stuff as well. So thanks for tuning in. Back again next Friday. And thanks again so much for watching.